Come, let us drift away from the present moment. Tonight, we will not walk through the gilded halls of memory, nor listen to the chronicles of the crowned and the celebrated. Instead, we will travel to the quiet edges of the world, to a time long past, and sit with those whose names were never written down. We are journeying to the lives of the common folk of the Middle Ages, the people who tilled the soil, who felt the turning of the seasons in their bones, and who never knew the comfort of a title or the weight of a crown. Their lives were a testament to a quiet form of endurance, a strength forged in the face of plague, the ache of hunger, and the persistent chill of a world that offered few comforts. There was no grand destiny awaiting them, no epic tale to be sung of their deeds. There was only the slow rhythm of the sun, the deep darkness of the night, and a profound resilience that we can scarcely imagine today. If this kind of gentle, unfolding story brings a sense of calm to your mind, you are welcome here. There is no need to do anything at all, but if you wish, you might let me know where in the world you are listening from, and what are the clock shows for you. It is a quiet comfort to know we are all here together, finding rest in the same shared stillness. So, let the lights fall low. Perhaps the soft drone of a fan can accompany our story. Settle into your rest, and let your mind grow still. Our journey begins now, in a place that exists just beyond the reach of any map. Part 1. The Unnamed Place. Imagine a place that has forgotten its own name. If it ever had one, the memory has been carried away by the wind. Like a loose strand of straw from a rooftop, it is a small gathering of cottages, nestled in a shallow valley. Like a gentle crease in the fabric of the earth, this place lies just far enough from the main thoroughfares to be overlooked by royal surveyors and the tellers of history. You have no map to find it, for you have never seen a map. The very concept is foreign. Here, your world is bordered by the great, silent forest. The trees stand so close together, so ancient and unmoving, that the woods feel like a living being. A vast green ocean that tolerates the small island of your village. The fields are a patchwork quilt of greens and browns, sewn together by generations of labor. They are worked until weary, and then worked again. You have heard whispers of a river, somewhere to the north. The old ones speak of it with a reverence usually reserved for saints or faraway miracles, but you have never laid eyes on it yourself. This small piece of land is the place of your beginning, and it will almost certainly be the place of your end. The entire journey of a life might be measured in the 100 or so paces it takes to walk from one end of the hamlet to the other. The homes here seem to lean into one another for support, their timbers slightly bowed as if from the constant pressure of the winter gales. Their walls are a weave of wattle and daub, a humble mixture of mud, straw, and sticks, patched over and over again with whatever the land provides. The thick, thatched roofs sag gently under their own weight, and during a long rain, water finds its way through in slow, patient drips that you can never quite seem to stop. The air itself carries a unique braid of scents, the damp, earthy smell of wool, the constant, hazy aroma of wood smoke, the sour hint of livestock, and the deep, rich perfume of the soil. This is not an unpleasant smell to you. It is simply the scent of your life. The way into the village is not a road, but a track of deep, hardened mud, carved by the slow passage of ox carts. These grooves collect rainwater in the spring, becoming breeding grounds for insects. No one of any consequence has traveled this path for as long as anyone can remember. Most days unfold in a profound quiet. You might hear the distant, softened toll of a church bell from another village if the wind is just right, but that is all. You learn to tell time by the slant of the sun, by the way the shadows stretch and retreat across the fields, or by the familiar ache that settles deep in your lower back as the day wears on. There are perhaps 12 families living here, just enough to feel like a community on the rare feast days. You know everyone by name, and you know their burdens, though it is an unspoken rule to look away from another's troubles until they become too heavy to ignore. The closest thing to a leader is an old man named Tom. He once had a brief conversation with a traveling monk, and he now recounts the story as evidence of his great wisdom. No one argues. Tom's cottage has stood for many seasons, and his goat is healthy. In a world of such uncertainty, that is all the proof of leadership one needs. Nothing here is exact. Land is not owned by deed or survey. Its boundaries are understood by landmarks. The field beyond the fallen oak, or the patch where the soil grows marshy. Disputes are resolved not by law, but by a shared weariness. A brief argument may end with a sigh, or the passing of a small loaf of bread back and forth until the will to disagree has faded. There is no school here to learn letters, no tavern to share ale. The arrival of a stranger is an event spoken of for weeks. Who are they? From what direction did they walk? Do they carry a blessing or a curse? A new face is a source of both deep fascination and a quiet, unsettling fear. And so, no one leaves. The idea of a journey is not a plan, it is a myth. You have heard tales of great towns, with stone buildings that climb 2 or even 3 stories into the sky. But these are like the fables of animals that speak, or spirits that live in the streams. You cannot long for a world you cannot imagine. The forest is a dense and tangled wall. The hills roll on without end, and the roads, if you could find them, are said to be home to misfortune and desperate men. So you remain. There is a deep, quiet safety in the known, even with its hardships, its leaking roofs and its wells that sometimes run low. There is solace in the familiar rhythm. You rise with the dawn, you rest when the darkness falls, and in the long hours between, you work. It is a simple existence, but it is your life. And in this gentle, repeating pattern, there is a certain kind of peace, a peace that has no need for answers, for it does not ask any questions. Once in a great while, a rumor of a distant war, or the passing of a king might drift into the village, but it arrives as a story worn thin by too many tellers, carrying little weight. Time itself moves differently here. The seasons do not change. They bleed into one another. A damp spring melts into a wet summer. An early frost deepens into a long winter that wears away the soles of your shoes. You do not measure your life in years, but in harvests. You remember the dry harvest, the bountiful harvest, and the terrible harvest, when the rye turned black in the fields. Nothing you see is truly yours. It belongs first to God, and then to a distant Lord you have never met. You know his name and you say it in your prayers, on the small chance that it might matter. For here, at the quiet edge of the world, things rarely change. And when they do, it is seldom for the better. And yet, tonight, the fire on the hearth casts a warm, gentle glow. The roof, for the most part, is holding back the night. And tomorrow, the sun will rise once more over the same familiar hills. For now, that is enough. The stillness of a bounded world. In your life, you will travel a great distance, but nearly all of it will be within the same small circle of land. Most souls in the medieval countryside lived and died within a few miles of their birthplace. This was not due to a lack of spirit or imagination, but because the world beyond the familiar hills felt like another realm, a place that did not belong to you. To venture into it would feel as strange as trying to walk on the surface of the water. You learned the shape of your world intimately. You knew the name of every rise, and followed the land between your cottage and the farthest field. You knew the pattern of bark on the old tree you passed on your way to the well. You could read the story of the day in the footprints left in the soft earth of the path. Everything beyond this small, known circle was abstract, a rumor. The next village, though only a few miles away, could have been on the other side of the moon. You had heard stories from there, of course, of a recent marriage, a dispute over a pig, a whispered complaint about the priest, but you had not seen it with your own eyes, and you knew you likely never would, for travel was a perilous thing, not in the way of grand adventures, but in a quiet, draining, and deeply uncertain way. The roads were not clear, marked paths. They were wandering tracks of mud that wound their way through the deep woods. There were no guides or signposts, only the vague directions of a traveler who might have passed through a season ago. Follow the stream until you reach the standing stones, or turn at the place where the path splits by the lightning-struck oak. And on these lonely tracks, there were worries that walked beside you. First, there was the forest itself. These were not tamed woodlands. They were deep, dark, and tangled, a place where the sunlight struggled to find the floor. They were filled with the sounds of unseen creatures, and sometimes, with the silence of people who wished to remain unseen. Then there were the men who had lost their way in life, who had no land to work and no home to return to. A lone traveler, no matter how poor, was a target of opportunity. A strong will was no defense against desperation. And then there was the simple, profound danger of becoming lost. It was not a small matter. If you strayed from the path, there would be no search party. You could wander for days, your calls for help swallowed by the trees. Your existence could fade into the undergrowth, leaving no trace behind. Even if you managed to avoid all this, there were the anchors of your life holding you in place. If you were to leave for a week, who would mend the fence? Who would see to the animals? What if the Lord's representative arrived to collect his due while you were gone? And if you did, by some miracle, arrive at another town, what welcome would you find? You would be an outsider. Strangers were often viewed with a deep and quiet suspicion. They might carry illness, or trouble, or strange new ideas. Your dialect would be slightly different, your customs unfamiliar. You would be met not with curiosity, but with a wall of silence. The safest place, the only true place, was home. It was known. You knew which corner of the roof wept during a storm, which of your chickens was prone to wander, and which neighbor might share a bit of their surplus without asking for anything in return. Out there, in the wider world, you were owed nothing. Still, sometimes you would see them, a traveling merchant, a monk on a pilgrimage, a messenger on a weary horse. They were a rare sight, a glimpse of that other world. They would speak of cities, where buildings were made of stone and light burned in windows long after the sun had set. It sounded like a dream. You would listen, your mind full of wonder, but you did not let the wonder take root, and so you stayed. There was always a task that needed doing, a bit of earth that needed tending, a child that needed watching. The sun would soon dip below the trees, and the day's work was not yet done. And in truth, you did not need the world to be any larger than it was. Your village, your fields, your small circle of sky, it was enough. A home grown from the earth. Your home has no architect, no plan drawn on paper. It is not built so much as it is grown, coaxed from the earth and the woods. It is a shelter born of a long and patient conversation between human hands and the surrounding landscape. It begins with a frame of wood, timbers taken from the nearby forest and shaped with simple tools that have been passed down through more hands than you can count. The wood is not perfectly straight. It holds the memory of the living tree, with its bends and curves. This does not trouble you. Between these upright posts, you weave a lattice of thin, pliable branches, creating a kind of basket-like wall. Then comes the daub, a humble plaster made of wet clay, chopped straw, and animal dung. You press this mixture into the woven frame with your own hands, smoothing it as best you can. As it dries in the sun, it shrinks and cracks, and pieces must be patched again before the cold winds of winter arrive. The roof is a thick blanket of thatch, made from layers of reeds or straw bundled and tied together. When it is new, it has a warm, golden color, a pleasing sight against the sky. But soon the seasons begin their work. The rain darkens it, the birds steal from it, and time softens its edges, creating the small, familiar leaks you know so well. The floor beneath your feet is the earth itself. Years of walking, sweeping, and living have packed it down into a hard, smooth surface, but it is never truly solid. After a long rain, it softens to mud. In a deep frost, it can heave and crack. You might spread a layer of fresh rushes or straw across it to keep the dampness at bay, but this too eventually becomes part of the floor, trodden into the dirt. There are no windows of glass. Glass is a substance of myth, impossibly expensive and fragile. Instead, there are small openings in the walls that can be covered by wooden shutters. These shutters never quite fit perfectly, and so the wind is a constant visitor, whispering through the cracks. The cold finds its way in, as do the sounds of the night, and occasionally, a curious chicken. Inside, there is only one room. This is the space where you sleep, where you eat, where you mend your tools and clothes, where you speak, and where you dream. Parents, children, and perhaps an aging grandparent all share this single space. In the center, a hearth of stone or packed clay holds the fire. The smoke is meant to escape through a hole in the roof, and most of it does. But a haze always hangs in the air, carrying the scent of wood smoke in the simmering pot. Your furniture is sparse and born of necessity. A long, rough table, a simple bench, perhaps a three-legged stool that never sits quite level. Your bed is a wooden frame filled with a mattress of straw, a space often shared for warmth. Your blankets are made of heavy, coarse wool. They are rarely ever completely dry. The animals are your housemates. In the coldest months, the cow or the pigs might be brought inside to share a corner of the room. Their presence is not a nuisance. It is a source of precious warmth. You learn to sleep through their soft rustling in the night. Nothing in this home is perfectly square or level. The floor has its dips, the roof has its slope, and the walls seem to bulge outwards, as if the entire structure is gently breathing with the wind. You mend what you are able, and you learn to live with the rest. And for all its imperfections, this is your sanctuary. You know exactly where the draft comes in and how to stuff an old cloth into the gap. You know which beam is strong enough to hang a pot from. It bends, it leaks, and it sighs in the wind, but it has sheltered you. And so, like your home, you have endured.